right, hello. It's MoonCricket Productions Book Club discusses Caste, the origins of our discontents by Dr. Isabel Wilkerson. It's very lovely to be here tonight to talk about stuff that's going to probably make me angry. But I'm here with people that make me laugh and who I love. So it works out. I am here with Denise Moore, or Denise Jenna. Sorry. Hello. Are you there?
Hello. Hello.
Yay! Hi, dear. Mauricio Rosas Alvarez is here in the building. Well, in his building, like his
What
house.
up?
Um, Sombra Williams is here. Hello.
Hello.
And we're going to discuss some stuff. We gonna talk about some things. Uh-oh. I already told you to join us next time. Well, all right. Because I don't know how to go back. Anyway, I do know how to go back. Yay! We're doing Cast Part 2, excuse me. You can get your copy at Community Book Center on Bayou Road, and that is their Facebook page. You can also get it wherever books are sold to Black people to learn how to get out of oppression. I don't even actually know how this book is not one of those burned books. I swear I was like, are they like, have they tracked these books? Have you checked your book to make sure it's not tracked? Because it could be. This could be it right now. I want to go into conspiracy theories about it. Okay. So that's the next thing. The next thing is conspiracy theories. That's what we're doing. All right. So let's get started with the discussion. Woo. So I was reading things, and I want to go to what Sombra said earlier. When we were chatting before the show. She said, I wanted to highlight stuff, but when I started highlighting, I'm like, I just highlight the whole page. That is that is literally what I did. After a while, I was like, I'm gonna need another highlighter. Like, I just start writing in the book. I'm like, it's my book. I can write in it. So tell me that. How do you digest this? Do you write in it? Do you write notes on the side? Or what's your way? That's to anyone.
Well, I'm reading it on my Kindle, and so I can highlight it, and then there's an option to add notes. Although I don't use that as much because it makes me feel like I'm in college if I add a note to a highlight.
And that's a bad thing. You're like,
Yeah,
I don't want to feel like I'm going to school unless I have student loan debt.
yeah. It was 4 long years, and they're over.
You did it. You made it. What about you, Mauricio?
I have different methods. The one I shared last time was that I don't highlight the whole sentence. I just like underline one word from that sentence. I
Mhm.
either the noun or the adjective, the most powerful word. This time around, I just took a little piece of paper, and then as I'm reading, I'm literally just like, oh, page so and so. Here's a word. That way, I don't have to like go back because I was creasing the corners of my pages, but I'm like every page is creased. So now this way I have like a visual one page, like all the pages, all the keywords that I'm looking at.
Okay, I might have to steal that because you talk about creases. You telling the truth. There's a whole bunch of pages. Like it doesn't help if all of them are creased. What about you, Sombra?
I have a combination of little post-it notes. Sometimes I'll highlight something and then put a page number for a similar reference somewhere else where it ties the pieces together a bit. But
Mm.
frankly, I just realized this may be a book I need to read more than once. Maybe I was just a bad student or stupid or something, but I feel like there's some material it 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 warrants reading more than once. So I feel like even though I
Mm.
read these chapters, I feel like I could easily turn around and reread them,
Yeah.
because there's just so much, and it's processing. I mean, she's laying down a lot. For me, this whole the book just turned a corner in in part two, where it's like it's more challenging and more to
Mhm.
process. So I've just got to read it again. Y'all are smart. Take
Yeah.
some notes, learn it. I got to read it again.
That is fair. I thought, like, even for this discussion, I thought, okay, well, I have what I'm thinking on this discussion. Then I start flipping some more. I'm like, oh wait, no, but I had that thought too. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm writing paragraphs next to her paragraphs. That's not that is not going to help. Well, at the end of this, I'm going to have like a compendium. I'm like, here's my little book about this book. So it is an honor and a pleasure to be able to speak to you all today. How about you tell me something that you like read, a phrase, a line, something that you would like, this right here. This had me. And you can go in any order, whoever wants to go, speaking to you.
I think it's on page 40, which is right at the beginning of part two, where she sort of compares your cast as being like a cast member in a play, which I relate to as an actor, where she talks about, they become their characters, and as an actor, you are to move the way you are directed to move, speak the way your character is expected to speak. You are not yourself. You are not to be yourself. Stick to the script and to the part you were cast to play, and you will be rewarded. Veer from the script, and you will face consequences. And I do think, because most people are just trying to like survive, and so they figure out probably around when they become an adult that like, well, if this is what's expected of me, and this is what I need to do in order to get by, then how I'll be.
Right. And yeah. Oh, I was gonna jump on that, but I said everybody get to speak their mind and we're not jumping on that. Okay. Yes. Mauricio, did you want to share what stuck with you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. One example being, she was telling a story about this lady named Miss, and she had a conversation with her, and her parents purposely named her Miss to kind of like stick it to the rules in place, because at the time, people of color were just being called by their first name, and so the the challenge to that system was to name her first name Miss, and so the conversation led to, you know, it was so challenging for the principal when they're calling attention to her and like, what's your first name? Miss. No, show me your ID. No, that's not it. That like, and it was so thrown back to the system in place that he wanted to call her by a first name, and the principal didn't realize that's like that is her first name, and so she said it very beautifully. You know, as long as you stay within that, like you stay in your place, then people don't question you. But as soon as you try to veer off from the expectation, is where people start fighting.
Yeah. As long as you stay in your place. All right. Sombra, what are you thinking?
What lingers for me is how impressed and inspired the Nazis were by the American racial system, all the way down to, it's not, I mean, my mind is still kind of whirling around this when Hitler says the knack for maintaining an air of robust innocence in the wake of mass death. Like they were really impressed at how many, Black folks, Americans could kill just by lynching. Look at that. And it's, hey, they were very impressed by that. That because I think in our culture anyway, people are quick to want to pull out Nazi Germany as the example of what it means to be oppressed and hunted and genocide, but to realize that they were inspired by us. That's still rolling in my head. I'm still unpacking that.
Yes. And let me jump on that too, because I was definitely in the same place, like, huh? Because the Nazis are the big bad, right? Even as a Black person in America, where I know for a fact what it's like to be in a country that sees you as other, Nazis are the big bad. And I think we were talking about like 9 years or 12, maybe 11 years that we're talking about. And I'm like, oh, we're hundreds of years and like 11 years. And still I'm like, yeah, but they're the bad guys. We're like, different, right? Because I'm an American. And so to find out that they were studying the playbook of American like racism and horrors was ugh. So the one I had was on page 93 where it says even the Nazis did not stoop to selling souvenirs of Auschwitz, wrote Time magazine many years
Wow.
later. I was like, yes, you could get a
Wow.
finger on sale. Like you could get a finger. You could get body parts of the people that you killed
Wow.
from a lynching. You could get postcards. Yeah, if someone has said, "Oh yeah, I got my Auschwitz like dining room set," you'd be like, "That's crazy." And yet this was what was really going like real life picnic, real life. So, whew, she did it. She definitely turned the corner. When you said that part about her turning the corner, Sombra, I was like, yeah. So we're gonna have to turn a corner right in our minds and just kind of delve in a way that yeah has some has some feelings. So maybe if you want to stretch, if you've been mentally stretching, physically stretch, because we're about to get into it. About to get
Take your
into it.
earrings off.
Yeah. Where my Vaseline at? Hold
Let me
on.
put your rings
Better
back
fight
on.
this thing. So I want to
Mm.
go into where some places that we hit on. I think Mauricio and Denise really hit on this well. We are all playing our part, and as long as you stay in your place. What? How was she highlighting that in this book? Like, how did that sit and resonate with you in this book in many different ways?
I guess it made me think about what it takes for someone to quit the play and stop playing the part and go off script and succeed at doing that. Because, like, we know what happens to people when they do that and they don't succeed. I mean, they might die or they may, never be able to be hired, or something like that. But, some people just manage to sort of create their own path, that
Hmm.
doesn't really require having to participate in the play. But I think a lot of
But even
times then those things that they do are just, it's decided that those things are illegal or
yeah,
immoral in some
yeah.
way.
It randomly reminds me of watermelon. Um, because watermelon was a way that black people could make money, right? And you could actually feed a lot of people too. Come and we eat, and this is a thing of commerce, right? And then watermelon became like, you're associated with watermelon, and it's like a negative thing or whatever. But at first, you were just doing something to benefit yourself as economically to like break out of a mold of you have to be like poor and kept with nothing and destitute. And then once you open that door, then the backlash of that is now the how you're seen, how that is attributed to you, like chicken and watermelon, all that kind of stuff. But like when you talk about going out of your role, like I think we do that a lot as people of color, just in general. Like, hey, we're the first. We do this. We're the first to do this, and you get into these different worlds, but there's a backlash and like the cost of that, so that the like caste system is maintained.
Right.
I
It
think
kind of goes back to, so she mentions like casteism as hierarchies, and that goes way beyond like history. Like there's always been pecking orders. There's always been the ones who have and the ones who don't have. And um, when you turn it into American history, um, you can't be racist without being casteist, in the sense that the pecking order was built on something as stupid as like the pigment on your skin. And so there's, she's saying like people don't see themselves as white or black when they live in their other countries, but when they immigrate to the United States, is like you have to pick one, right? So you're either going to be a white person or a black person, and then you try to not disturb the rules of the game. So if you choose to go on the white side, then okay, then you see yourself as higher than another person, so you start making all these prejudiced on what that whole group of people should be and what you should expect from them. And the same the other way around. If you immigrate and you're darker, then you're going to see yourself as not white, and then all of a sudden you start judging the ones who have, and how like they're not doing their part and they're doing this and that and the other, because you're just playing that same game of like, as long as you don't disturb the system, then you won't suffer the consequences.
I like how she, and I think I've read this in other books, where the series The Matrix, the idea that there's a program that appears to be reality, but to break out of that is not just dangerous, it's going to cost you, and breaking out of it makes you a threat. Not just to the program itself, but to the people who benefit from it. Now, people at the top benefit the most, but then you got everybody at the bottom fighting for the crumbs as well, and they're just as likely to turn against you. To me, I think about how that splits a person. I mean, not just people of color, not just Black people, white people. She talks about how, you know, in dehumanizing others, white people dehumanize themselves. And the internal struggle, was it James Baldwin said something like, to be Black and mildly conscious in America is to be enraged like all the time. But to, you know, to tamp that rage down, to do what you got to do to make it through. But what would it cost to express that rage?
Right.
Well, if you're white and you express that rage, you storm the Capitol and it takes them months to find you and bring you to justice. If you're Black and you're protesting because someone has been murdered in the streets on camera, then suddenly you're Marxist and anti-American. But the program determines where the value is, but mentally, emotionally, it's a drain, but we take it as normal because that's just the cost to exist in this program, and what would be the collective cost to destroy that program.
Right.
You know, that whole fear of lack comes with the program.
Right.
What if the paradox was completely different? What if there's plenty? The program only works with fear of scarcity, right? But what if there is plenty?
Yep.
What do we do
because
then?
if there's I like this idea, like what if there's plenty, right? Because with scarcity comes the inability, like to the disincentive to help others, right? And so even though I'm not on the top, maybe I like when she talked about Mauricio, that immigrating in part and people having to kind of choose and play the role, or like just be quiet so I don't associate with, like I can't choose because my skin color a little too dark, but if I just don't associate with none of them and I espouse the same like racist things, then it's okay, and I'm like playing the game. And like how that keeps us in a situation where we're fighting for the little, right? Whatever the crumbs are, we have to keep the crumbs. And in order for me to get my crumbs, I got to make sure you don't have yours. It can't be that I have mine and you have yours. That's not okay. But if we thought, what if there is plenty, then it wouldn't hurt me to help you, right? It always feels like there's a hurt to help, when maybe like after you get through that hurt part, there's like a field of there's more. There's more. Sorry, I quoted my own play just now. No one knows that I did that. But
that's got to be amazing to be at a point in life where you can quote yourself, quote your own work. Forget this book, I'm gonna quote my own work. All right.
By the way, MoonCricket Productions presents. Let's have a little commercial right in the middle. Stangela Swamp Thing. Okay, catch it in July. All right, let's move back into the conversation. So what about that, Denise, Mauricio, this idea of lack? What do you think, like how does this idea of lack keep us into that same kind of paradigm, or lock us into a paradigm?
Well, it keeps us contributing to capitalism. Because we always think that we need more than we have. I mean, there are definitely people who should have more than they have. But if we were a fair society, we would figure out a way to make things more equal. And then none of us would have to participate in a system that we don't want to.
Which is comes to that meritocracy piece, right? That we kind of touched on a little bit on in the last time we spoke. Is like, well, I deserve to have. I've worked hard to have, right? And it's not negating the fact that you worked hard, but it does negate that other people work hard. Everybody works hard. Like, people, but in general, to be in this country, you got to work, right? No, it's not given to you. And I think about that when they talk about like the different programs that are supposed to help people. And they're like, we're not just giving things away. We're not socialists. And you're like, well, I mean, for like 400 for hundreds of years, we did free labor. So I don't know. I don't know that you're giving anyone anything. I think you owe. I think that's where we at. You owe.
Yeah, it crosses that line of, as Denise was saying, the capitalism. I see it as a class system where the ones who have and happen to have surplus, it goes a lot easier for them to use that surplus as like a cushion of, well, I don't have to worry about this, that, the other. But the ones who don't have that cushion, then it's like every single penny is a constant daily struggle of stress. And so, like, seeing that extra of like, why do I have to do this or that for I guess like the inconveniences of a higher class is like, well, that's because you've never seen the struggles of not having that cushion, of having to like not sleep or not eat or not afford something. And so those small things that we classify as decent, like human services, all of a sudden become a political thing of, well, why do you deserve all these free things if I worked hard? And so, well, did you? I'm not saying that you didn't work hard. I'm just saying that the balance is not there in sense of, you might have had an advantage that like was instilled from the get-go that you never saw different. I hear a lot of people say like, well, in this country, we all have the same advantages or the same opportunities. It's like, no, we don't. We have a system that could potentially work in everyone's favor if you're very, very lucky and well-connected. So not everybody has the chance or instance to be very lucky and well-connected. And that can lead to a classist divide. And currently, it almost feels like classism and racism go hand in hand when people just use skin pigmentation as a class thing. And it's like, it's not. Just because we have had a history of like the color of the skin being the lower class doesn't mean that we don't currently have people of color who are in the high society who are neglecting everybody else, who are just like, well, it's not my problem, that's not me. Like, well, it's everyone's problem. It goes beyond. So classism obviously is a huge problem. Racism is a huge problem. Prejudice is a huge problem. But it's tough to fix it until we identify that prejudice of casteism that Isabel, Dr. Wilkerson defines so clearly. So it just like, the book is great because it's so densely written that I want to read the entire chapters and I can't to this call, but it does like whichever way you're coming from it something is resonating within you.
Yeah, I definitely think that a lot of times there's conversations between race, like we get in conversations between race and class, and like which one is it or whatever. And I think caste allows us to kind of encompass that and say like, or encapsulate that by saying like, okay, this caste is the system, race and class are the things that continue to make it run. I would argue that I don't know that you can ever actually be outside of race. Even like, I mean, if you're Oprah Winfrey and still can't go to a store to get a purse or whatever, because they like, oh, you didn't look like Oprah to me. You know what I'm saying? Like you still got that, you still got that color on you, you know.
Yeah.
But I do also know that I was watching, good Lord, something Real Housewives, black something, hip hop, whoever. Something with black people doing hip hop on a reality show. And one of the things the lady was saying, she was like, well, some of these guys are um, closet Trump supporters because they don't support his racism, but they support his like pocket and the money, right? And so how, to get your crumbs, you all right with making, being all right with the other atrocities or whatever that's going on.
I think it goes back to the human capital versus human value. And our country was founded, yes, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, but that's the script, right? That's our program. So like we're introduced to that from elementary school and middle school and civics classes. So to have the capacity or even the desire to question that, you're automatically vilified. Now, what's being thrown around now? Oh, that's socialist. Oh, that's Marxist. And it's like, is it really? And most people who say that don't really even understand those concepts well enough to defend them. They just know that if it's not everybody get yours, can what you get and get what you can, that's the American way, right? You work and you do it. But to me, all that does, when you really just pull back the layers, and it's not that far down. I keep coming back to, that's our script, that's our program. That's what we're raised to believe. So if Oprah can be Oprah and still can't get that bag, then color's still a part of it. She
probably owns that whole company now.
Like was it Henry Louis Gates? I think it was Henry Louis Gates who was stopped in his own home. So it's like that costume only works up into a point, and when you hit that ceiling, you can't tell me Black folks in power don't already know. I mean, hello, former First Lady Michelle Obama, forever First Lady, can be a racial epitaph and called all kinds of things. Ivy League grad, valedictorian, have all the things and still be considered less because she's not white in some minds. And that, I mean, I guess our program is being updated, maybe updating. It's like we're being, but the core is still the same. The core is still the same. And it's like how much has changed and how much really hasn't. And I love, going back to the example that she used, caste without an E. I mean, you want to push back against that. It's like, well, wait a minute. Nobody can tell me no. There is a script. And when you start playing up outside those lines, you can do it up until a point. But when you hit that upper limit, because it costs you. I mean, it may cost you your life resisting arrest. I mean, you see videos of white folks getting their gun. Was it Kyle Rittenhouse walking down the street with his AK-47?
Yeah.
Oh, he's just being a good citizen. But she had a knife. 4 bullets and she's down. I'm like,
you made me think about like, I kind of wrote it down because it was sitting with me. This idea of like, we keep looking at our programming, we keep trying to act a certain way. If you act a certain way, then you'll be okay. Just act this way. And that's still not true. You cannot act your way out of the consequences of a system that's based on oppression, right? It no matter how respectable you are, right? And what stuck with me is on page 48, there was this quote that I thought was interesting. It said, let me get there. It's at the bottom of the page. It said, the colonists created a caste of people who would by definition be seen as dumb because it was illegal to teach them to read or write, as lazy to justify the bullwhip, as immoral to justify rape and forced breeding, as criminal because the colonists made the natural response to kidnap, floggings, and torture, the human impulse to defend oneself or break free, a crime if one were Black. And what it made me think was that we use these reasonings, like every time we see a shooting on TV, every time we see anything happening, we see kids in cages, and we use our reasoning to be like, why do they deserve it? because we have to figure out a way that it is that person's fault. Okay, you got raped. Okay, you're immoral. Why was you wearing a short skirt? That skirt says rape me, right? And like all of these things that we use to keep us from having to have action and keep us to have from having to like push against the system that is. And when I look at that, what I see is that the reasoning comes after the injustice. First you do the thing, then you figure out why that person deserved to have that thing happen to them. It's not, you know what I'm saying? You didn't, you don't, like, I remember I was listening just now to the Austin Police Department had shot a guy who didn't have a gun on him. He had a gun in the car, and they go, well, he had a gun in the car. I'm like, wait, first of all, it's not illegal to have a gun in the car. Number one. And number two, was he a threat to you? Don't tell me afterwards about all the things he had. Oh, well, that kid used to smoke weed. Trayvon used to smoke weed. So, that makes him a bad character. Like, don't tell me afterwards. In the incident, was this person doing something that created, this issue? And from what we see of Caste, it's just, no, I need to do this thing. I want to do this thing. And now I have to go back and figure out why it's okay to do it.
But I also think that's part of the program and part of what, I guess, mystified the Nazis about Americans. This quote, y'all, I'm gonna keep going back to it. Hitler especially marveled at the American knack of maintaining an air of robust innocence in the wake of mass death. They marveled at how we were somehow on a world stage had a quote unquote sterling reputation. Y'all think of the psychosis that it takes, the sociopathy that it takes to kill, murder, destroy, and yet still maintain that I am right and I am good. So much so that the world is taken in by it. Y'all, okay, I'm gonna name a thing. That's just demonic. That's evil, y'all. I'm gonna put it out there. But that is so much a part of the American way. And I'll just say it, our previous president was a reflection of that. I can go down on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody in the face and I won't lose any votes. He knew enough about the American psyche to understand that in a certain caste role, if I have enough power, if I have enough money and I lack the pigment, there are just certain things that I can speak into being. It's kind of a God complex. Yeah. In the face of all of the atrocity, I can still say, now it's being questioned more now. I think it's been questioned from the beginning, but for whatever reason, that whole self-determination, manifest destiny, I don't know what it is, but y'all, is that not sociopathy? Is that not like some serious? That's tantamount to mental illness. Like it's a part of our ethos. It's a part of our ethos.
And you say it enough such that it becomes like true. Like other people are going, yeah, I guess that must be the case. Like what?
It's like women, this ad lib. Yes, and then I shot him. Yes, and then I dragged his body through the street. Yes, and just go with it. Just go with it. Just go with it.
Worst the audience is like, game ever.
Yay!
Right, because then they go, well, if I stand up, I think it also enforces itself, right? Like, Denise, I think about how violence reminds us to stay in our place, right? Because like even the people that are not Black, right, or not held down by their race in general, right? So like, if I'm a white person that thinks that this thing is wrong and I want to dismantle it and that's where I'm at, okay, but then I watch all these Black people getting shot in the street and I go, well, if they'll shoot you, right? If they're okay with shooting you, they might shoot me. And what it's not a good thing, but the thing that is interesting about this time period is we're seeing this happen to Latinos, we're seeing this happen to Asians, we're seeing this happen to whites, we're seeing all of this happening on our TVs to a whole bunch of people, how the police system tries to maintain the order of caste. And when you see everyone going through it, then you go, oh, okay, see, ain't nobody exempt. You thought that if you just just keep quiet and be exempt, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, eventually it's always going to spread to everyone in the caste system. It's going to affect everyone. maybe not in the same numbers or the same way. But you know, there are definitely going to be white people who end up being killed by there already have been. And actually, I was on Twitter and someone was trying to argue with someone about that. I was like, well, technically white people are killed more by the police because they were looking at the numbers and not like the percentages. Black people are disproportionately by percentage killed more. But the person responding was like, yeah, y'all should be mad about that. You should be mad about all these white people that the police are shooting too. But you're not, because you keep telling yourself that it's just a problem that black people have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's like we should all be mad. That's the truth. We're all watching the play going, this play sucks though, right? Which is not what you'll say about Swamp Thing on in July.
This program is brought to you by.
I couldn't help myself.
Hey.
The other side of the thing too is what we're talking about, the pecking order. Is like, why aren't you getting mad? Why aren't you doing something about it? And they might just be lazy and change the channel and be like, this is too much. I need to be more positive and look at something else in life. And so it becomes that what Summer was saying, like dehumanizing, where it's like, it's not me, so it's not like important. As long as I'm like looking out for myself, looking out for number one, you lose that humanity of like, no, this is an everyone issue. This is not just a you issue. Like the struggle is real and the challenges are multifaceted, and not one single person is going to make a change. But if everybody believes that, then change won't happen from one person either. So everybody has to do their part to fix something somehow, and not point out, like the book was saying, not point out individuals, but point out those systems. Where it's like, stop victim blaming, start addressing the actual issues. Don't say the name of the person, but say like, what was it about that behavior that is not okay, that everyone needs to understand.
Like to me, that's where, I mean, stuff got real when she started showing how, okay, yeah, we've used racism, we've used the concept, the terms systemic racism, and people who haven't read, thought about, really dug into what racism is truly, it's easy to, it's almost like playing tag. Well, I'm a black woman. You said black, that makes you racist. You mentioned race, and that's just not what it is. But in the common parlance, that's kind of what it's turned into, right? But she's like, you know what? Let's just say, forget that. Let's say you don't want to say you're racist. Well, but guess what? You're Castus. It's like, so I mean, that's the big boogeyman. I'm not racist. And when she talked about how if someone can have a rebel flag and lynch people, but still say, I don't have a racist bone in my body, and their comrades go, yes, that's right, not a racist bone in his body, because he didn't use the N-word one time. Right? So there's on page 70, she says casteism is the investment in keeping the hierarchy as it is in order to maintain your own ranking, advantage, privilege, or elevate yourself above others to keep others beneath you. For those in marginalized castes, casteism can mean seeking to keep those on your disfavored rung from gaining on you, to curry the favor and remain in the good graces of the dominant caste, all of which serve to keep the structure intact. Yeah. So if you say systemic racism, so many people, I don't want to name names. Oh, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, systemic racism. There is no such thing. Okay, fine, because I don't want to study it. They don't really know what it is. But when you mention caste, most people you throw a rock know about caste as being something in India, right? And I love how she unpacked and drew the parallels. I mean, it's irrefutable, with the exception of Hinduism, with the exception of karma and reincarnation. Yeah, that's us. Yeah. And for folks to, you know, grapple around what does it mean to be racist, and she's like, you know what? Great, you can be a casteist without being quote unquote racist in the common parlance. I mean, you don't ever have to use a racial epitaph. You don't ever have to fly a rebel flag. Because you can still be a casteist.
You're always trying to find the bottom. It's like, well, I did not burn a cross today. My friend burns crosses every day. I only burn them on Thursdays, so I am not a racist. Okay,
Exactly.
Like,
So I'm not a racist Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Boom. I'm only racist on Thursday.
and if you take that as a percentage, I'm clearly not racist. That's like a really low percentage. Okay, everybody has that percentage of racism in them,
I
right?
don't commit those crimes biannually. I
Yeah.
also have a home and a pet shelter and a soup kitchen.
There you go. There you
Nice.
go.
I heard that quote too. um, so I know we're wrapping up, and I want to make sure that I honor the time that you have given to me and shared with me. This has been a great conversation. There's so much more. I feel like I'm looking at my pages. I'm like, but are we talking
We,
about any of these
but it
things? Am I
got more
not-
post-it notes.
Yeah.
I didn't get to my last 5 post-it notes.
So but we will continue and pick up this conversation. We're going to move into part 3, and I think we can get through that whole part. It's 65 pages. Does that feel good for you all to do part 3 on the next time we talk?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do that. And let's have a parting thought. Parting thought. If right now you had to tell somebody, okay, like, this is the reason why you should read Caste, this is the reason why you should have these discussions, what's like one little thing that you would tell them that says, like, this is why these type of conversations are important? Let's see. I would go with, these conversations are important because not having them doesn't keep them the system from working properly, right? The only way to dismantle a system that is ugly and oppressive is to have conversations about, what is.
I would agree with that. And that it's easier to process the ideas in a book like this with other people, or at least watching other people talk about it and sort of elaborate on how it made them feel.
I would say for the vocabulary by itself, like this book is introducing so much new content that people have never been able to put into words. And so to have those conversations, it's good to be on the same page and have the nuances in the word choice without making assumptions of expectations of the other person.
I'd say the historic facts, it's easy to feel a whole lot, and you're gonna feel a whole lot when you read things like this. But what is it? I never get this quote right. My husband quotes it all the time. It's like, everybody's, can have an opinion about something. You can have an opinion about a fact, but the facts are irrefutable, right? So feel what you need to feel, but if you avoid facts, I mean, that whole 1776 edict, American history is American history, stop trying to revise it. No, this is shedding light on our holistic history. And without those historic facts, without that documentation, we just go around with our feelings. Fine, have your feelings, but read the facts. Read the facts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. If you were watching, join us next time. Join us next time where we'll be reading chapter 3, and you can get that book from, why can't I do stuff? Ignore that. You can get your book from Community Book Center or anywhere books are sold. We will be back May 12th, unless I change it, unless we all go, yeah, I don't want to do that. But hopefully we will be back and doing great things because we love each other, and we're trying to open up